Hello, and welcome to the first ever episode of Appalachia's Voice. My name is John Sprouse, and today I'd like to read you guys a story from the book A Wayfaring Sin Eater and Other Tales of Appalachia by James Gay Jones. It's a very good book. He's also accredited to making Appalachian ghost stories and other tales in Haunted Valley. Today we'll be reading a portion called A Pampered Poltergeist. So, if you can't see or you're just lazy and you just want to hear something, have a nice little sit down with me and let's read a book together. Who would have thunk? So, we're going to be reading A Pampered Poltergeist by James Gay Jones. Over a period of several years, numerous reports have been made concerning the presence of a ghost on the campus of Glenville, West Virginia State College. Its activities have been largely confined to two buildings located nearby. Its presence has been of such import that some students, a few members of the faculty and buildings and ground caretakers have given it a serious and discreet consideration. It is the opinion of most observers of the situation that the presence of the ghost is directly related to a crime that was committed at the location more than a half a century ago. In the fall of 1918, a woman by the name of Linn was murdered in her house, thereby being bludgeoned to death by one or more assailants who never were apprehended. In later years, the Linn property was purchased for the college, and on the exact spot where the Linn house had been situated, a dormitory for women was erected by the named Verona Maple Hall. A few years later, another building, known as Clark Hall, was built in the same space between Verona Maple Hall and the cemetery that adjoins the campus. In those two buildings, a variety of activities of undetermined causes have been heard and attributed to the ghost there. This ghost is said to be a poltergeist, or a noise ghost. It seems to delight in making sounds similar to that of chairs being moved about in vacant classrooms, tapping on the plumbing, especially at night, banging on metal waste paper cans, opening and closing of doors and cemetery gates, and a variety of other unexplainable noises. Also, the turning on and off of lights in the buildings, as well as those located over the outside doors and at the front steps, have been observed in both daylight and at night. One student related that while he was working late one night in the basement classroom of Clark Hall, he heard a strange noise upstairs. He decided to investigate, and on entering the stairwell that led to the second floor, he reached out to turn on the light switch, but before he touched it, the light came on. Thinking that someone upstairs had turned the light on for him, he went up the stairs to the fire door that closed off the second floor hallway. As he opened the fire door, the light went off and left him in near total darkness. The only light to be seen was the red exit light over the door at the far end of the hallway. For several anxious moments, the student stood there pondering his next move. After peering into the darkened hallway, for a time he thought he saw an object about halfway out the hall that seemed to sway back and forth. He said it appeared to be about the size and shape of a small black bear. Because of the darkness, he could not tell whether it was looking towards him or facing the exit light at the other end of the hall. Cautiously, he moved backward and began to feel for the light switch without taking his eyes off the swaying object. Before he could find the switch, the light came on and the swaying object and darkness disappeared simultaneously. One night, while some students were walking past Clark Hall, they saw the draperies in a classroom with window open and then close again. The doors and windows of the building were locked, and the night watchman, who who had came from the building only a short time before, said he had seen no one there. At the insistence of the students, he reluctantly went back in for a recheck while the students kept watch at all the building's exits. When the night watchman came out, he reaffirmed his earlier statement that there was no one in the building. A greater interest then developed among the students to keep watch over the area at night. Some took the sleeping bags to the cemetery where they maintained overnight vigil, while others patrolled the campus until late at night. Shortly after midnight, one student and his girlfriend decided to give up the watch for this night and strolled down the walk beside the cemetery on the way to their prospective dormitories. As they were passing the cemetery gate, they both were startled to see a dense gray mass slowly rise from the far corner of the cemetery and start moving toward them. At first, they were so frightened they hardly knew what to do. After some chilling moments, the young man, who was quite religious, began to pray and to cite verses of Scripture. He quoted, "Begone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve." The gray mist suddenly vanished. Shortly after the announcement was made that Verona Maple Hall was going to be razed, some concerned members of the faculty and students felt that the formal procession of welcome should be performed for the orderly transfer of the ghost from Verona Maple Hall to Clark Hall. When the time arrived for the ceremony, those who participated in the procession were serious and discreet in their demeanor, since some of them were henceforth would be spending a great deal of their working time in cohabitation with the ghost in Clark Hall. They saw this was no time for levity and gave it a sincere welcome. That was a Pampered Poltergeist, about a poltergeist that lives in Glenville State College. And you can read that book or that short story in a Wayfaring Sin Eater by James Gay Jones. And I plan on reading many more from this book, so if you like it, please subscribe to the channel. There will be more interesting stories as fundings are allocated. And as my papa always said, if you're low on money, then you're rich on time, buddy. So, my loss is your gain. The best thing we can do is educate each other, because when we increase our literacy, we are increasing our ability to learn. Thank you. And this has been a Sprouse House production, and we appreciate your subscription and all your help. Thank you.